Well, it's the morning once again, and that means something happened yesterday, and um, I'll start from the start. And yesterday it started off really well. I left my Airbnb probably around 10 or so. I was a bit slow getting ready because I wanted to clean a bunch of stuff before I left while I had the space. And I don't know, a few other things that always end up slowing me down. There's always something. And so I left, and I was following the river again, following the Mass River for half of the morning. And it was quite cool at the start because there was a big sign saying, Eurovelo 5 this way, and that was cool because it was the first time I had been on the Eurovelo 5, and I knew that number 5 was going to take me all the way to Rome. So all I have to do now is follow the signposts. Although I do know that in some places it's still in development, so they don't have heaps of good signage the whole way. But yeah, it is pretty cool to see the signs. And so I didn't have any breakfast because all the shops were closed yesterday. So pretty much the first thing I did was to stop at an Aldi, which was conveniently right on the side of the river. And I got some croissants and a few other supplies, and I stopped and had breakfast on the river, and that was really nice. And there was quite a few people cycling past, as well as a bunch of English lads with all their bike packing gear. So I was wondering where they were off to on their little adventure, and they gave me a bit of a nod as they went past, and it looked like it was going to be fun for them. And yeah, so I continued, and the ride along the river was really nice. It was kind of overcast day, but not like cold or wet or anything. So it was just nice to get the sun off a bit, and it made a bit of a fog kind of over the river, which was really quite nice to cycle along. And this kind of continued. Soon I crossed the river, and then diverted from the Mass for the first time in a few days, and started heading up into the mountains. And at this point I knew there was going to be a bit of climbing today, or yesterday rather, and the mountains soon came, and honestly, I had kind of looked forward to it because it had been so flat and kind of boring the last few days that I really didn't mind that there was some hills again, and I was feeling fresh. And I think after all the cycling I did in Norway, these hills, the ones so far anyway, have been pretty tame in comparison. I know it's going to get a lot harder when I get into Switzerland, but we'll see what today brings. I think it's not going to be too many bumps today. Should be reasonably flat. So I was kind of enjoying climbing the hills, to be honest, and there was I turned around a corner, and there was this huge almost like Iron Man statue that someone had welded together on the side of the road. It was I don't know, 2 stories high, and had all the scaffolding around it and stuff. It was pretty amazing. So I took a picture of that, and an older couple of cycle tourists passed me, and they waved and all that, and I passed them again soon up the road, and I probably won't see them again, but that's all right. And one other thing, a couple other things, but yesterday, the day before yesterday rather, I started listening to a book called Shantaram, which a lot of people have recommended, and it's quite well known now. And I was given this book by a girl I met probably about a year ago, but it's about I don't know, this thick. So I never actually ended up reading it, and I left that book, I don't know, somewhere, and but I have an audio book of it now, so I started listening to it, and I have to say it is probably the best description of India I've ever heard. I have quite an affinity with India. I've been there a few times, and it's quite a special place. And it's always hard to describe what it is about India which makes it so special. And this book does a really good job, actually. So, I recommend at least listening to the first chapter if you're curious to know a bit about what India is all about. Anyway, so I've been listening to that, and that's been quite helping the time pass a bit. And I stopped for lunch around 3 o'clock on the top of a hill because I had a late breakfast, so I wasn't that hungry until quite late. And while I was sitting there listening to the book and having a nice lunch, another cycle traveller pulled up, and he was a young Belgian guy, another solo traveller, cycling from Brussels, and his plan was to go to Rome as well, although he didn't seem to think he was going to get there because he had time constraints. So he sat and we chatted for a while. We picked some blackberries together, and he offered me some of his food, but it was first of all I had my own, and secondly it was meat, so I wasn't going to take any of that, but it was very nice of him. And we chatted for a while, and I thought maybe we would continue cycling together, but he said he was going to lie down and have a bit of a nap, so I decided that I wasn't going to do that, and I continued on. And around about this time was when things started to go bad, because something happened yesterday which has only happened really a few times in my life, and the last time it happened was probably 2 years ago. I don't know what causes it, but basically it was a really bad migraine, and it starts, and I can kind of see the warning signs because it starts in the same way each time I get it, and that's basically, it starts with me I start to get a bit disconnected from my body. And what I mean by that is I remember looking at my hands and thinking wow, my hands look really weird. It doesn't seem like it's my hand. And no, I wasn't on any mushrooms or truffles yesterday. It's got nothing to do with that. It becomes almost like a out of body experience. And the second thing, that's always the first thing. The second thing is I was trying to read something on my phone, and I was just finding that I couldn't read it. I had to read the same sentence 5 times to understand what it was saying. I had to just keep reading it because the words weren't making sense. And I read a lot, so that's very unusual for me to not be able to understand a sentence. And so that's another big warning sign. And so I was just feeling kind of dazed at this point, and I knew. Oh, and then another thing which always happens is I get numbness in one of my hands, and this time it was my right hand, and I can't remember if it's always the right hand. But my fingers started tingling, and then a few of my fingers went numb. And obviously this kind of sounds like a bit of a stroke, or probably a stroke. So I'm kind of on edge when this kind of stuff happens, and like I said, it doesn't happen very often. So I was just kind of playing it easy and waiting to see and for it to get better. And eventually I started to feel better, but then I started to get really tired. And again, this is what usually happens. So after I passed the Belgian guy who had stopped for a nap, I went up another big hill. He ended up passing me again because I was going really slowly at this point. And I got to the top of the hill, and then I found a bench, and I also just lay down and ended up falling asleep for probably half an hour. I'm not sure how long exactly. And when I woke up, I was feeling a little bit better. And so I continued again, and it was pretty close to the town that I was going to be stopping at, which was only about 75k or so from where I started. Like, I decided to cut the day a bit short for obvious reasons. And as I was like riding down into town, that's when the headache started. So these other things are kind of like preempters, and then once they kind of pass, then the headache is what comes next. So then I started to get this like really, like, started off mild, and then it just started getting stronger and stronger, like throbbing headache. And so I was able to, I stopped at a little outdoor shop, or two of them rather, and got some more gas, like right before they closed, because my headache wasn't that bad at that point. And then I got to this little campsite where I am now, and of course, like, to get here was a massive hill. The town was pretty flat, and then to get to the campsite was just a huge hill. So I ended up having to push a bit of that, and then got here. Got myself a tent site. That was all good. And then as I was like setting up the tent, the headache just got really bad, and I took some aspirin, but it just didn't seem to do anything at all. So my head was just throbbing as I was setting up my tent. And so basically I finished that, had a shower, and it was only like 7:30 at this point, but I just couldn't stay vertical. So I just lay down in my tent and tried to sleep while my head was just throbbing, because there was nothing else I could do really. Luckily I wasn't that hungry because I'd eaten only a few hours before that. So basically just eventually fell asleep probably around 8 o'clock or so, and woke up this morning, and my watch tells me I had about 11 and a half hours of sleep or something, which is obviously the longest I've had in a while. And I think that helped because I'm feeling mostly better, although like I do have a very slight headache still. So I'm feeling well enough to continue today, and I just found a little campsite about 80 k's from here, which should be perfect, which I'll stay at tonight. And someone's offered to host me in Luxembourg, so that'll be really cool, the night after tonight. Hopefully this headache kind of disappears completely in the next couple of hours. I've taken some more aspirin this morning, but feeling like reasonably well rested, even though I probably look tired still. My nose is starting to peel a little bit, which is a bit of a shame. Yesterday was a bit rough, and let's hope that it doesn't happen again. Like, these kind of things, like I said, they only happen like a few times in my life, and the last one was a few years ago, so I don't know what causes it, but let's hope it's another few years at least until it happens again. So that's it. I'm gonna pack up now and head off. It's about 9:20, so